let's dive right into this explainer because today we are going to completely shatter some old stereotypes and unlock the absolute secret to lifelong independence. When we hear the word muscle, a really specific and, let's be honest, kind of intimidating image usually pops into our heads. But today we're redefining what muscle means for your health, your autonomy, and your future. We're going to look at the untold story of human strength, and trust me, it is an incredibly inspiring story of personal transformation that applies to literally every single one of us.
Now, if you're in your golden years and watching this, I want to speak directly to you for a second. It's totally normal to feel a bit, apprehensive about the idea of lifting weights. I mean, for decades, society and even a lot of doctors warned older adults against heavy lifting. They'd say, oh, it's bad for your joints or you're going to injure yourself. We've basically been conditioned to think that building muscle is this exclusive club just for bodybuilders or elite athletes. But what if weightlifting wasn't what you thought it was? What if it's actually the most potent medicine we have for preserving your independence?
I absolutely love this quote because it completely reframes muscle from some shallow vanity project into the ultimate tool for everyday survival. Just let that sink in. Think about your grandma. Think about her ability to just stand up from a deep chair, carry her own groceries into the house, or, pick up a grandchild. That is what muscle is really for. It's not about looking a certain way at the beach. It's about functioning effectively in the real world. Muscle is literally the biological currency of our personal freedom.
Okay, let's move into Dr. Delorme's revolution and the origins of progressive resistance. To really grasp this, we actually have to take a super quick trip back to ancient Greece. Have you ever heard the myth of Milo of Croton? The legend goes that Milo wanted to get strong, so he just started lifting a newborn calf every single day. As the calf grew into this massive bull, Milo's muscles adapted to the incrementally heavier weight, making him the strongest guy around. It's a fun myth, right? But in the 20th century, a brilliant doctor actually turned that ancient myth into a medical miracle.
And that brings us to the deeply inspiring real-life story of Dr. Thomas Delorme. Back in the 1930s, Delorme was this sickly, bedridden teenager dealing with rheumatic fever. To pass the time, he'd read these old, cheesy muscle magazines. Eventually, he actually built himself a makeshift barbell out of junkyard parts. It's wild to think about. Modern rehabilitative medicine was essentially born from a 16 reading magazines in bed. But by lifting that junk, he completely rebuilt his own body. Fast forward to 1944, Dr. Delorme is now an Army physician in Chicago, treating wounded soldiers recovering from orthopedic surgeries. Healing was dragging on, and conventional wisdom back then said weak muscles should never be pushed. But Delorme, he knew better from his own life. He bucked the system entirely and started prescribing a standard dosage of weightlifting, 3 sets of 10 repetitions.
So his prescription worked. It was remarkable. Soldiers were healing way faster than anyone thought possible. But he hit a huge roadblock. The medical community, and even the patients themselves, were terrified of the phrase heavy lifting. It just sounded like a threat, right? So Delorme and his wife Eleanor came up with this brilliant linguistic pivot. They renamed the whole treatment progressive resistance exercise. Suddenly, it didn't sound like a daunting chore anymore. It sounded like a highly inviting scientific medical treatment. And that simple, genius change in terminology opened the door for weightlifting to become a fully recognized rehabilitative science.
Which leads us to our next section, the science of regeneration, or reversing the clock. Because the science of what is actually happening inside your body when you lift a weight is nothing short of miraculous.
For the longest time, there was this really harmful medical dogma floating around that said once you reach a certain age, your muscles just stop growing, and you're doomed to decline. Well, we now know that is categorically false. The basic physiological equation is super simple. Tension equals force. Your muscles are incredibly plastic. They grow stronger, larger, and literally regenerate themselves by carrying and adapting to tension. When you lift a weight, you're applying optimal stress to those muscle fibers. Your body responds by signaling those fibers to systematically rebuild themselves stronger than before. And here is the absolute best part. This cellular mechanism of wear, tear, and repair, it never shuts down. Whether you're 60, 70, or 90, your body is always listening for the signal to rebuild. You just have to give it the tension it's asking for. So many older adults go to the doctor and are simply told to just go for a walk. And look, walking is a fantastic habit. It's wonderful for your cardiovascular health. But here's the catch. Walking does not prevent physical frailty. It doesn't stop muscle loss, and it sure doesn't prevent falls. Strength training, on the other hand, that actively builds bone density, it dramatically reduces your risk of falling, and it preserves that crucial fast-twitch muscle power you need to catch yourself if you do happen to trip. Think of it this way. Walking is basic maintenance, but heavy progressive resistance training, that is the true anti-aging medicine. All right, let's jump into true stories of transformation, the modern miracle. Because if you are still sitting there skeptical that lifting heavy weights is really possible for everyone, I need to introduce you to the groundbreaking clinical trials of Dr. Maria Fiatarone.
Back in the late 1980s, Dr. Fiatarone wanted to test the absolute limits of human muscular regeneration. So she set up a study at the Hebrew Rehabilitation Center in Boston. And she didn't recruit the fittest, healthiest seniors she could find. No, she went to the frailest population available. The average age of her participants? 90 years old. 90! We're talking about frail nursing home residents. A lot of them had multiple chronic diseases, severe arthritis, and relied heavily on walkers or wheelchairs. At the time, Western medical literature had zero record of frail 90-year-olds doing maximum strength weightlifting. The scientific community literally thought she was crazy and putting them in danger. But she hypothesized that high-intensity strength training wasn't just safe, it was absolutely necessary for our oldest citizens.
Her team carefully guided these seniors through a highly specific but totally manageable protocol. They used high-intensity weights, doing 3 sets of 8 repetitions just 3 days a week. The secret sauce here was keeping the movement slow, deliberate, and highly controlled. It wasn't about recklessly swinging weights around, it was about focused intentional tension. And the results? They proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that lifting heavy weights, relative to what the individual can handle, of course, is incredibly safe and entirely feasible for seniors.
Now, the crucial takeaway here is this absolutely staggering number, 174%. That was the average strength gain experienced by these 90-year-olds in just 8 weeks of training. I mean, let that sink in for a second. 8 weeks. Some of the individuals actually improved their strength by over 300%. And muscle biopsies taken during the study showed that their muscles weren't just firing better neurologically. The actual physical muscle fibers were growing larger. The cellular regeneration happening in these 90-year-old bodies was virtually identical to what happens in a young person hitting the gym.
The real-world impact of this newfound strength was just breathtaking to see. Walking speed increased by 50% across the board. There was this one resident, Helene Fraunlich, who never missed a single training session. She regained so much physical power that she literally abandoned her wheelchair completely. Other residents downgraded from walkers to simple canes. It was an emotional triumph for them. They were reclaiming the physical freedom to just move around their home without relying entirely on the nursing staff. They proved that human strength is this beautiful, cyclical process. You put in the effort, you give the muscle tension, and you receive your life back in return.
So, let's wrap this up with your plan for autonomy, the prize of freedom. What does all of this science actually mean for you?
It means we need to connect this directly to your daily life, because the goal of building muscle isn't a step on a bodybuilding stage. It's about highly functional, everyday goals. It's about not being a burden to your family. So here is your simple, empowering prescription. Step 1. Start exactly where you are. If the heaviest weight you can currently lift is just the weight of your own 2 arms, perfect. Start there. Step 2. Lift progressively heavier loads. Once a weight feels easy, you gotta slightly increase it to keep sending that rebuild signal to your body. Step 3. Prioritize proper form. Talk to your doctor, work with a qualified physical therapist or trainer, and move slowly and safely. And step 4. Reclaim your freedom. Watch as your daily tasks become so much easier and your confidence just completely soars.
I always like to remind people of this profound biological truth from the Nobel Prize-winning neurophysiologist Charles Scott Sherrington. He said, "All we can do is move things, and our muscular contraction is our sole means thereto." Think about that. Every hug you give your kids, every step you take in the park, every single page of a book you turn, it all depends entirely on your muscles. Preserving our muscles is fundamentally about preserving our ability to interact with the world and the people we love.
As we've seen today, no matter your age, your background, or your current physical state, your body is practically begging for the tension required to rebuild itself. The evidence is absolutely clear, stretching from the ancient fields of Greece to modern nursing homes in Boston. So, as we close out this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, provocative question. Knowing that muscle is the ultimate key to a long, independent, and autonomous life, are you ready to lift the weight of your own freedom?